Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Questions and Answers, episode 7. It's been like 7 months since we did the last one, and that's disgusting. It's very upsetting. I've been planning on doing one of these videos for obviously 7 months, and I went back and checked, and that was just gross. So I did look at the videos in between now and then, and it was during a lot of Worlds in Peril, and I had a couple projects I couldn't talk about with you guys in there as well. So a lot of stuff's been going on. Most you guys won't be able to see. However, that's all slowed down big time. So let's get back to doing the sweet questions and answer videos. So how this works is, theoretically, every month to 2 months, I'll do a questions and answers video. And you guys can leave any questions you got, especially in the comments of this video, in terms of, or hoping that I can answer them for you guys in the next video. What I also do is I'll go in between and look for questions that I may already answer anyway, regularly through chat on the comment section through the videos, and I'll talk about them as well during the next video, because not everybody reads comments, right? So we can do all that. So if you're interested, please leave a comment down there as well. And the video that's going on right now is a sped up process video of a concept piece that I was doing for Castle Dracula, for a mini comic that we'll be doing. And what I might do is I'll most likely do another video showing or talking about the process of me doing that as well. So if you guys don't want to watch the video, that's cool. I'm going to try to hammer through this. There's quite a bit of questions. I got my coffee ready, and let's get this going. So, and again, thank you everybody that left comments and questions. I appreciate it like always. So the first question comes from Luminous Sky. And none of these I remember the videos that these came from, okay? So the questions were, it's quite a big one here. I don't have any general questions, but there are specific things I want to learn how to do. I'm currently working in Manga Studio, so I love seeing instructional videos on the software. These are some topics I'm interested in to learn more about here, okay? So he has a little bit of a list that I'm going to go through, and we're just going to pick them apart. And if you guys might have similar questions as well, you guys can check those out. Okay, so the first one is, how do you go about adding line weight to a drawing in Manga Studio? What are things to consider? So there's actually this one tool, and I can't, if you look in Manga Studio, you can actually search for something called the correct line tool, and I believe in the settings in that, you can literally, we did this in one of the videos, you can draw over lines and it'll progressively make it more thick. I believe it works best with vector art, but to approach your question from like a fundamentals background, line weight's actually, it's very simple, and once you start to, I don't necessarily say study it, but practice it, I find most people catch on relatively quick, and then from catching on, you just refine and understand it more. So the basic fundamental of it is, theoretically, the practical and like why are you doing it, is to sell the illusion of a 3D object or overlapping objects in a flat surface, right? We're doing art on a flat surface, and it's our job to be almost magicians and give that illusion that there's scale and depth. And to do that, we have to fool the eye, and the eye only understands, because our eyes only see a 3D world in 2D space, very much like paper. So what do our eyes use? What do our eyes use to tell what's going on? We need light. Without light, nothing happens. There's not, we don't see anything, even though it's there, right? So, when you're drawing, think about using your lines, and I believe I do have videos, you can go back and check, but when you're drawing a character, let's say, just like a regular character, you do your normal lines, don't worry about making anything thick, you just have regular lines so that the line work is sound, and what you're trying to do, like the figure is there, right? What you'll do next is the line art is done, you need to add line weights, and that will push forms in the background. So an easy way to practice this is grab a scrap piece of paper, draw a circle, draw a cube, not just a square, but like, you know, the traditional three-sided cube. You probably see the top, the left, and the right. And you could try doing a cone as well. Just basic geometrical shapes, and then put a sun in the corner like you draw when you're a little kid with a yellow crayon. Put it in the corner. Now that's your light source. So any of the sides of the objects you just drew, those geometrical shapes, those are where your basic line art would be, and the opposite side, get a little thicker with it. And just by doing that simple thing, hopefully your eye, and it should feel better. You look at it, you're like, oh, okay, I'm seeing how that works. I'm seeing that there's weight on the other side, right? And that would also be like where your shadow would go, right? A lot of people, they don't like to add a lot of shadow to their work, and line weights are an excellent way to help this. So you don't have to necessarily do shadows at all. But the line weights, that's what they're there for, okay? Now there's the overlapping shapes where you could have like somebody's torso with an arm coming at us, like punching at you, and the lines that are heavier, right, like that. This is so hard to explain just with speaking, but I'm just hoping you can visualize it. So that basic line art that you would draw around your character with somebody stretching out at us, those lines should get thicker the closer they are towards us. And then once that's done, then you can again add your line weight on that. So even though you might have big thick lines around a fist that's coming right at you, still get thicker on the other side that's where the shadow would be hitting, okay? You can look at other artists. A great artist that I always talk about is Joe Madureira. If you look at his art, he's got this very like chunky, some people just do it for style, right? But that is what I talked about is the fundamental reason for it. And as long as you know that, going forward with every drawing you do, it's a massive tool that if you can start to apply it to your work, in my opinion, it actually elevates your skill without you even needing to like learn more art. I know that sounds weird. I got a lot of client work just by adding shadows to things to bad art. I could hide my inaccuracies and my inability to draw certain poses and stuff with shadow. So line weight is on its way to there, and I'm not trying to make an excuse for not studying and getting better with your art. I'm just trying to say that is a core concept to illustration, especially comic books, because it's our job to tell a story, and if you can't separate space and figures with line weight alone, there's a problem that's going to happen there. And it's one of those things that I don't care who you are, cartoons have it too. Everybody needs to learn line weights, right? And it's not that hard. So again, go back, do a little search on my channel, or go to my website. I know I have a line weight video. It's an old one. Maybe I can do a newer one just to keep it a little more relevant. All right, let's go to the next one. We got about 5 questions here. How do you create vertical straight lines in Manga Studio? What method do you use to draw arched structures with precision and in perspective? So vertical lines, I'm going to talk about this without using the rulers in Manga Studio. If you're using rulers, this probably isn't really a question because you can just snap and it'll make the straight line. But if you're going to make a vertical straight line in Manga Studio, the only way I've figured is by holding, I believe it's Shift. Just like in Photoshop. So if you hold Shift and click, it will go, okay, well, here's the point I have. You hold Shift, and you move your cursor, and you're going to see this transparent line. It almost looks like this piece of string or licorice, like straight licorice. And then you can rotate it and click somewhere else, and it'll make a straight line. The problem with that, or like at least that I've found, in Photoshop, you can Shift click as well, and it'll make it straight. Like it will perfectly be a straight line because it's locked in. I don't know how to necessarily do that in Manga Studio. I tend to use a lot of the rulers, or you can use a stabilization, crank that sucker up, and go pretty slow, and it'll be somewhat straight. As for curve structures, a lot of these things I'll just use the line tool in Manga Studio and eyeball it. You know, I know there's tools. You guys can check out Doug Hills. I know him. His website, he's got a lot of great tools, a lot of ruler tools. I think they're pretty complicated for what they're doing, but that's because I haven't really looked into it. So rulers in general tend to be pretty scary, and I just stick to the basics with this stuff. So sorry I couldn't really give you much more of an answer on that. Next question, what kind of brush in Manga Studio is best for creating thin lines to use for shadows or to add definition to flesh? And then you're asked for settings. I'm not sure, again, for the video that I was using. So everybody's got a little different preference. The biggest thing that's going to help with the thinness is literally the pen pressure you're using. And I hope you guys are using some sort of device that allows for pen pressure. We were actually talking in a chat a little while ago. Some people were using a mouse. And I don't want to... I don't want to say offend anybody, but anybody that's using a mouse to do work, go ahead, do what you're doing. But I would say it's in your best interest to save up a little bit of money. The cheapest tablet you get from even Wacom is almost like $100 in Canadian. And that might be a lot for a lot of people, but in the long run, what that's going to do for two things. One is ergonomics for your wrist. You're not going to get all snapped up and you'll be able to draw longer. It's more comfortable once you learn how to use it. And the other one is your art. Theoretically, and this is where I didn't want to offend anybody, you should get better because you'll be able to make art quicker, less errors, and you got the pressure sensitivity that you can just willingly do just by drawing, which is natural, right? That's why I would recommend doing that stuff. And again, like when you're doing that sort of stuff, when you're using a mouse, the brush settings are, I couldn't relate to that. But for me, in Manga Studio, I tend to use, let me just see here, I do have it open. Sometimes these questions go up. I've made some custom brushes, of course, but I usually tend to default just to the straight G pen. I don't know what it is. I think there's a question coming up that I will talk about where I feel like I'm getting carpal tunnel, which is scary, guys. Talk about reality. And the least amount of pressure I can use, the better. Just the better. So, in saying all that, I would recommend, it's training your hand to be light. Don't carve. When I write, like with a pen on paper, like grocery lists or something, I'm a carver, and I've noticed a long time ago that like I bend my wrist when I draw like that. I call it southpaw style of writing. All bad news bears. It's just snapping my wrist up. You see guys like Eric Larson drawing like Savage Dragon, and that guy, I don't know what the hell, how that guy's ready to go, man. Some people are just born. Maybe I got bad genetics. I'll blame it on genetics. Blame it on that. Two more quick questions here. How do you apply textures and patterns to your drawings in Manga Studio? Example, creating checkered shirt, striped coat, denim jeans. Okay, so in a lot of the comic book work I do, it's colored, so I save a lot of that work for the colorist. It's up to them to draw blue pants for jeans, add the texture. Now, in saying that, there are certain things I try to remember when I add in doing things. So, like, if you're wearing jeans right now, if you're wearing pants at all, look at your pants. There's usually a seam that runs down the side of your leg, like from the side of your hip down. That's a great piece of texture to add in. That seam is huge. Where your crotch is, right, you got the zipper, male or female, doesn't matter, that's there. Pockets, it's like detail work that you can throw into areas. That's the key stuff. Also, if you're working with shadows, let's just say you're working with like a textured sweater where it might be like knitted fabric. You see a lot of artists do this. And actually, if you look at a lot of, well, not a lot, but just even check out Captain America artwork. You know how he's got like that scaled armor? You can see a lot of artists, even Aquaman, what they'll do is they'll just throw like random scales to where the light is, but as it gets in a shadow, all of a sudden the shadow starts turning into a texture. That's huge. That's one of the biggest tricks you can get into to save time and to sell it. So you don't always have to draw all these perfect scales. And texture works a lot other way, especially with clothing and stuff like that. Stripes and things, it's like drawing Spider-Man's costume. He's got the webbing everywhere, right? It's just practice and research. Look for what other people are doing and what you think looks good and give it a shot and see how it goes. Last question, how do you go about drawing superheroes? Superpowers, electricity, and like all kinds of superpowers. That one's actually very tricky. I would recommend checking out animation. Animation, because when you're doing stuff that's organic, unless you play, like, I'll say even video games, movies are not really. I'm talking about things that you can actively turn on an ability or something, right? So if you're playing, I don't know, any kind of game where, like, you can use a power or something, there's something that's there. As well as animation, you can see, like, the startup, the action of the event, and then the conclusion of where it goes. So just say you got a guy that can, like, it's like Avatar, The Last Airbender. So just imagine you got a guy who's doing some kung fu and he's just punching, right? Like, but before he's punching, before he's getting ready to throw that punch, maybe there's like a little bit of debris swirling behind his shoulder, and then as he punches forward, he lunges forward, you can feel like the dust kicking off the ground, and it swirls and spins in front of his fist, and when he boom, and he hits the guy, and maybe there's like a little spark of dust behind the guy's back. That kind of stuff, it's very hard to see. Some people can do it. I'm not a very visual artist in my head. I need to scribble it out. But when you're looking at like animation from time to time or YouTube videos, games, it's building that, what's that called? That visual library that's in your brain that you can pull back at some time, hopefully. And you just have to think of it organically. Reference, reference, reference. These things don't exist. Other artists are coming along to create them. That's why, in my opinion, there's a lot of artists, and whatever, but a lot of artists, let's say you want to work for Marvel DC, they'll only read Marvel DC books, which is great. If you want to draw the Hulk, you got to see how the Hulk's done, right? But this is where the art stuff, they always talk about where you need to go see life to bring it back to your artwork and stuff. Look at manga, look at animation, look at things from time to time to bring these, like, who knows how Iron Man shooting an ion blast or whatever out of his hand, Marvel draws it that way. You go and grab a manga book of like Dragon Ball Z, they're shooting fireballs and kamehamehas out of their hands and stuff. Like, the way energy is drawn is different from artist to artist, right? So you always need to be aware of that, and you owe it to yourself. Just go experiment with this stuff. Check it out. See what other artists are doing. Okay, so thanks for the question, Luminous Sky, and we'll jump on to the next one here. So the next one's by Mr. Sinister. Man, I love Mr. Sinister. Such a cool villain. It's a little longer here. Thank you very much for answering my question. Your answer was, oops, sorry, I got a cat here. There you go, buddy. Thank you very much for answering my question. Your answer was perfect and very informative. I have a couple more questions. Okay, so that's not part of the question. The only additional question I would ask you openly is whether or not you think art college actually helped me, or whether or not it landed you jobs in the past. A lot of people are saying art school is not worth it, especially if you're talented enough to start with. I was just wondering whether or not you thought college was worth it for you. Okay, well, thanks for the question. First, I'm a massive believer in hard work will beat talent every single day of the week. Here's a question for you. How many kids, including yourself, grew up that you know that were talented? There's probably, like, I can remember, there was a handful of them. And they were always like, I don't know. Anyway, I remember those kids. And it didn't matter if it was drawing or sports or whatever, right? There's the talented kids. But how many of them grew up to actually be a professional in what they were talented in? I can't think of a single. There might be one that I'm not thinking of, right? However, all the people that were doing hard work are the ones that are actually successful. They're the ones that are willing to go through the pain, right? If you're and this is just an opinion that I got, okay? I find that if you're talented at something, that's great, but there's no drive. There's no striving for me to go, well, there's, okay, you put two guys in the room, a guy and a girl, and one of them's talented, and they can draw the best superheroes, the best. The hard worker goes, I want to draw comic books. That's what they've come up with. The other kid is just like, I draw really cool. People give me a lot of praise. Now, the person who wants the hard work goes, I want to do that. What do you think they're doing when they go home? They're busting ass. They're figuring. They're breaking stuff apart, putting it together, getting upset, not having fun necessarily. They want to play video games. They want to watch movies. They want to hang out with friends. They want to just relax. They want to just have a good time, party and stuff, right? That's what everybody wants to do until it comes down to something you need to work hard at. And if you want to work hard at it, that means giving up on things. And usually, and this is where this is what separates people, guys, is that the people that actually want it bad enough and are willing to go through pain to get it, right? Like we all know how hard it is to learn anatomy. How many books do you own on your bookshelf of anatomy books? I own a shitload. How many of them have you actually read? How many of them have you actually gone through pages and pages and pages, and then sketchbooks and sketchbooks and sketchbooks and studying? How many of you guys have done that? And it's just an honest question. I'm not calling people out, just throwing it out there, right? Ask yourself, see what happens. Now, here's another one for you. How many people have done it? Are you one of those people? Can you be one of those people? Do you want to be one of those people? Because these are the things, right? Like the talented people, they're like, they can quickly grasp stuff. They can see things a little differently. Now, that's not to say if you're talented, you'll never make it or never be anything. Of course, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that generally, I have found that people that are naturally talented tend to not want to work as hard to get there. It's as simple as that. So, if you don't have talent, if you've just picked up a how to draw comics book, good. Just realize that it's hard work, and you're okay with that, and then you're totally fine with that. And I'll just bring it back to your question: do I think school's actually worth it? I don't. Personally, I don't think school's worth it. The one biggest thing that I always hate about school, still to this day, is the cost. The cost is insane. How many people are in debt because of school? Like, there's no reason for this stuff. If you ask me, there's no reason for it. Now, that's not to say that a school doesn't give you anything. It's like a big giant network fest, okay? You might not be meeting people from the bigger cities from where you live, or if you're in the big city, you might not be meeting people that can get you jobs and stuff, but you are theoretically surrounded by people that are hard workers, right? There's a couple of them that get in that are just natural talent, right? But you technically are surrounded by people that are hard workers, or just people that are like, I have no idea what to do. My parents needed me I still have to go to school because I don't know what I want to do with my life, and I'm okay at drawing, so I'm just going to go do this. They're there too, okay? But I'm always in the competitive mindset with this stuff. I don't ever want to belittle anybody. It's kind of like this kind of thought that I have comes from fighting games. I love fighting games. I'm not very good at them, but I love the fighting game aspect where if you want to get better, the only way you're going to get better is by surrounding yourself by people better than you and doing what you need, the hard work to get better than them. Find out what they're doing. Study it. Beat them, right? Because those people are the only ones that are going to bring you up. You start surrounding yourself with people that are less than, and I mean that, you guys know what I'm talking about that. I'm not saying less than, whatever. But the people that you're clearly better than, if you continually surround yourself by them, only getting feedback by that's it. Where else can you go? Those people aren't going to know if you're getting better. It's up to you, and that's the hard work stuff, okay? So just to wrap it up, I know that was a huge rant, but just to wrap it up, school is individual. You have to ask yourself the real questions. In today's day and age especially, you can 100% absolutely homeschool yourself. I can only imagine spending the same amount it costs at art school for online courses and treating it legit. Don't just, I'm just going to, treat it legit. The amount of education you could get from home because of online is insane. Absolutely insane. Okay? So you got to take it both ways. You got to figure out what's going to happen. Life does get, usually for most people, if you don't go to school, that means other areas of your life are going to kick up, right? Maybe you need to pay rent. Maybe you need to you're kicked out now. You know what I mean? Like there's reality starts to, like it's not just green fields all the time with this stuff, right? Just know, have an idea, a strong idea, like think. What I always ask people to do is just, when this question does come up in like private messages or whatever, you need to be honest with yourself, because I've struggled with this, and I've re-asked myself, 8 months ago I had this conversation with myself. 2 years ago I had the conversation with myself. You need to just sit with yourself for a little bit and just think, where do I want to be? What do I want to do? What do I want to do? Because if you're not asking yourself this and you're just going into school because you haven't thought about it yet, that's a red flag. That's a huge red flag. Okay? So just ask yourself this stuff, and you're the only one that's going to know. But the resources, and there's tons of comic book artists. I would go ahead, arguably, could be wrong, I'm going to say like 90% of comic book artists are self-taught. Okay? I'd even go ahead and say maybe 70% of working artists in general, for entertainment purposes, video games, movies, comics, that sort of stuff, self-taught. I don't know where that number's coming from. I am pulling it out of thin air, but I feel it. And that's not necessarily anything to take. But anyway, I wish you the best in whatever you end up doing. And please let me know. Please let me know what you ended up choosing to do. So the next question comes from, I'm going to butcher these names, Troy Picu. Could you give any recommendations and resources for learning to draw special effects, light, fire? Okay, so this question was meant to be tied in as well with the previous one about how to draw superpowers. Again, it's just reference, broaden your horizons, watch Attack on Titan. Just the first episode. You don't even have to like anime. You don't even have to like how their eyes are always like shining for no reason. No reason. And everybody's just like, nobody says anything. Their mouths are just open and they're making sound. Like, I get it. You don't like the style of it. That's cool, right? Look at it. See the movement. And just look at it that way and never look at it again, right? go check out like Lord of the Rings, the movie or something like that, right? Try to find like the energy that's drawn there, or not drawn there, but like Gandalf comes out and he's Gandalf the White and he slams the staff down, and they're like, oh man, it's Gandalf, it's not Sauron. The way the light comes through the trees and stuff, like that's special effects, right? Look at that stuff and see, like try to look at analytically of how it's happening, and the biggest thing is like if you get the feel from it, like if you're like, whoa, like something changes where you're like, that's cool looking. This is why I recommend video games, especially I'm a huge fighting game fan, like I talked about. Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat. We'll talk about Mortal Kombat. I was just playing that yesterday with my brother. So Mortal Kombat 10 and things like that, you can get guys doing like moves and you can just pause the screen. That's huge, man. Like I used to do it all the time with Street Fighter. He grab a guy. I still love Zangief and the grappling and obviously the big muscle guy. So he grabs somebody and he like bend him over and he's ready to like give him like a suplex, and you pause it, and I would just draw what I'm seeing there, and you could see like there's smoke and stuff coming off the screen because it gives that feeling of, oh my, like this attack's got more power to it, right? Animation. That's why studying that stuff is so important. Okay, so I wish you the best as well, and thank you for the question. Next question comes from James Gostasha. James Gostasha. I'm struggling with figuring out clipping masks in Manga Studio 5. Any chance of getting a tutorial on using them? I know that they exist, but not much more, except that I hear people talking about them quite frequently and would love to know more. Okay, well, thanks, James. This question was asked like 6 months ago, so I'm hoping you figured out a solution. But if not, I mean, this is always good for everybody that's listening right now. So I'm just loading it in Manga Studio right now so I can give you guys a proper way to do it. So what a clipping mask is, if you think about, if you've never colored anything before, I'm going to try to speak this really quickly and in plain terms, okay? So on one layer that doesn't have a background on it. So like, you know, when you open up Manga Studio, it'll have like your paper, I think it's called, and then you have a layer above it that's got like all those gray and white dots. That means it's transparent. And when you draw on that layer, it's whatever you're drawing is on that layer, but the checkered background means it's transparent, so you can change underneath of it any color you want. Okay? So when you're drawing on your transparent layer, your drawing layer, it's most likely called or something, right? You're drawing on that, that's fine. But when you want to color something, in comic books, they tend to do something called flats. And what flats is just a flat color, and it's devoid of shading and lighting. Okay? So you'll make a new layer that's between the paper and the drawing. So above the paper layer and underneath your drawing layer. And what that does is, again, that flat is transparent behind it, so you can move it around, but it will block out anything on the paper, as well as, since the line art is above it, you can see the color underneath of it. Just play around with the layers if this is sounding a little alien to you. So what flats will do is you just make like an outline selection of the whole character, and then you fill it a color. Okay, we'll say the Hulk. You draw the Hulk, and then on this flats layer, you draw like an outline or whatever. You're basically coloring him in like a comic book. Okay, so now that you have that selection, what that lets you do is at any time, you can just select that layer, the marquee, select that layer, so that it's always selected. So if you need to go outside the lines, blah, blah, blah. So what masking does is now you can make a layer that masks to that flat layer. And I'm trying to keep this pretty simple so you understand. So we got the Hulk, and we need to give him his purple pants. So he's all green. His whole body's green. I'm going to make a layer above it, clip it to the green flats that he is, so that when I draw the purple pants on that layer, I can go way outside the lines, get crazy with it. It doesn't matter because clipping is just showing you what is, it's sort of like a stencil. So if I had a paper and I made a stencil of the Hulk and you spray paint it and you just go stupid and you take that stencil off, it's perfect. It's perfect what it is. And that's all it is. It's just to make it easier for you. So when you have a layer, what you want to do is, if you want to, there's actually two ways to do this. I remember we found this out on the stream by accident. It was actually really cool. There's two ways to make a clipping layer. So you can right click on that layer and go up to layer settings. And what you're going to look for is clip at layer below. That's all it is. And what will happen when you do that, at least in mine, the layer looks like it shifts over a little bit, and it gets a red or a pinkish stripe on the left of it. And that's just to let you know that it's currently being clipped. Now the other way you can do it, and this one might be a little easier for people, is it's literally right, if you look in your layer settings, right where if you're making new layers, you got all those icons at the bottom, make a new layer, make a new group, new folder, all that stuff. Right at the top there, like right next to the opacity slider, it looks like it says 100%. On the left of that, it says normal. If you look underneath, right under normal, it'll look like two ellipses, or it looks like an open can of like tuna or something. If you mouse over to just this clip it layer below, you can just click that on and off, and that's the easiest way to do it, instead of having to right click all the time and doing all that stuff, okay? So if you guys are into coloring and stuff, highly recommend checking that out. All right, thanks, James. Next question comes from Edward Bangalan. Hi, Jonathan. Thanks for the video. I'm a big fan of your YouTube videos and often watch them while I draw, and I've learned a lot. Thanks, man. Thank you. I really do appreciate that. My computer crashed a while back. And my production has pretty much stopped for quite a while. Just curious, but do you have any advice on backing up your work or backup plan in case of PC failure? Okay, so a lot of my digital workflow, I've said it before. Just 1 second, a little swig of coffee here. So I've said it before, that a lot of my digital workflow of drawing in general, especially for comics, is the, what is it, how to draw, oh my god, DC Comics Guide to Digitally Drawing Comics, okay? I still recommend people check that book out, but anyway, what it did was it taught me a lot of practices, and it took me a little while to get in the habit, but once I started working on that workflow, I started to notice that, okay, so these files are getting pretty big, and what if my computer dies and all this stuff? So what I did is I saved up, and I got an external hard drive. I don't even know how big it is, to be honest with you guys. And in that book, what Freddie talks about, I'm not sure if he still works 100% like this, but I recommend having multiple hard drives, if you can get them. I'm hoping to get another hard drive myself soon, so that if one dies, even though you have to reformat your system, all that stuff, on that drive, you've got your entire art folder, at least I do, whatever you have in there, all of your work that you've been doing, and if they fill up, you can always just get another one, you know, I know money is whatever. So all of my art projects are in there, and this is the one folder that I've been very diligent on keeping backups of, and it's just called the master file, and what that is it's got all my brushes that I've ever downloaded, my fonts, Manga Studio brushes, Photoshop brushes, actions, templates, 3D models, all these things that like accumulate over time that are very important, and if I had lost, God, I don't even want to think about having to like go and get all that stuff. So that's all on my primary hard drive as well as my secondary hard drive. The other thing I do, and this is the one that might get a little like, some people don't like doing this, and I understand it, is whenever a project's done, I'll actually burn a copy onto DVD, or multiple DVDs in most cases, because they tend to be more than 5 gigs of data. And I'll just burn a DVD, and now I have an actual DVD backup of it. And the last one that I'm trying to get into, and this one's a little bit more, I don't want to say it's new to me, but is getting the digital version backed up as well, so that like Google Drive is actually pretty strong. We do use that at our day job. Jessup, what are you doing? My cat's trying to bite the power supply. That's great. But like a lot of that stuff, if it wasn't for the day job, I never would have like dabbled in it. But there's a lot to be said about digital backups, so I would recommend that. But the 3 that I gave you there, just 2 hard drives, burn it to DVD. It's going to save you a lot of headache in the case that like what you just went through. Okay, besides having to reinstall software and stuff. So sorry, I'm sure you're backing up by now. But man, does that suck. So thanks again for your question there. Okay, so we're kind of getting about halfway here. What are we at, about a half hour? All right, see if we can get this under an hour. Austin Lane is asking, hey Jonathan, here's my dilemma. I'm 14 years old and I want to do something like what you are doing in the art field. The problem is I'm not drawing once a day because when I come home from school I'm exhausted. I just sit down and play video games. I don't know how I'm going to be able to draw how I used to draw, so I need some advice from you. Okay, well this is a question that gets brought up all the time. I will say right now, there's days I don't draw. And, you know, it's hard to say that because everybody's always saying things like, you need to draw every day, bud. Excuse me, and you do need to draw every day. So what I would recommend, and I think a lot of us artists do this, a lot of artists talk shit. Okay, a lot of us talk about like how perfect we are in our regimens and our workflow, and this is what you need to do if blah blah blah, if X and Y aren't met, right? One thing that I would recommend you do, and this is something I do every day, even though I just said I don't draw. When I say I don't draw every day, I'm talking about like production. So whether it's client work or my own personal stuff or YouTube content, right? Like that's drawing to me, right? But what I always do regardless is sketchbook stuff. And my sketchbook stuff does not actually have to be in a sketchbook. I could have just said sketch stuff. On the back of an envelope, on a sheet of paper at work, in between meetings, on a phone call. Sometimes I have been known to bring in a sketchbook to the bathroom. Hey, don't just bring your cell phones in there, guys, right? If you're going to be in there for a little bit, may as well knock a sketch out or two, right? But not to get too gross on you, it's not as hard as you think. And I find that if you start something, there's at least a chance, right? So if you're saying you're struggling to really even get started, if you can start at least to just noodle stupid stick people or shapes, you don't even have to have a goal in mind. You're watching TV or you're playing a video game if you're playing Call of Duty or something like that, like in between lobbies. Have a sketchbook next to you. If you're playing a role-playing game, in between load screens or whatever, right? Like, if you want to draw, and here we go, we're gonna get all like inspirational here. I'm gonna try not to, but if you really want to draw, you'll find a way to like sneak it in, okay? And I would recommend doing that because there's the chance that if you're doing that, you're going to start getting some habits put in there. Like you'll draw. Let's say you're playing a video game because you want to relax, but you'll start to draw, and you're kind of like, what could tend to happen, and it did for me because I was in a big video game rut as well with that stuff. Is that you start to draw, and you're like, and the entire time you should be doing that, but you just choose not to. So I found that when I was doing like these little sketches and stuff, making the transition of shutting it off and getting up to go do something, it helped big time. A couple things, okay, so before I say that, just ask yourself a question right now. Do you really want to draw? And it's okay if you don't. No, like, okay, actually, let me re-ask that. Do you want to be an artist for a living? That's different than do you want to draw, okay? If you want to be an artist for a living, we're going to have a real talk in a second here. If you just like to draw and you want to draw your characters that you come up with and some fun stuff and just like more hobbyist, do it. You can still learn all the same stuff. You know what I mean? Like, just know that down the road, that's theoretically what you wanted it to be, and just be happy with it, man. Play your video games, have a good life, enjoy what you're doing, right? And if you want to draw, that wants to be a part of, like, you just want to casually throw in a couple sketches or a character shot of somebody you thought of, or like, you know what I mean? Like, there's nobody's going to critique any of that stuff and say, well, you're a failure and you should have done this and that. And if they do, fuck them. Tell them to go screw themselves, okay? It's your life. Enjoy it. Do what you want. Now, to get the real talk at you, if you want to do art as a living, you got to think of it like that. You got to think of it like, okay, so if today I chose to quit wherever income is coming from. I know you said you're 14, so you're living at home still, I'm assuming. Income and all that stuff isn't that thing. But let's just say you hit 19 and now you're out. Sorry, your parents, that's just the way life goes. Who knows? Tragic events, life, they don't like you, or you've had enough at home, or you're just like, I feel like I'm ready to leave. It could be good, bad, whatever, right? Can you support yourself on your art? Do you want to support yourself on your art? If any of these answers are yes, then like you have to find a way to kind of go back to what I was saying in the beginning here of talent ain't going to get you where you're going to need to be, most likely. It's the hard work. And you're 14 right now, I'm telling you right now. I'll tell you what I was doing when I was 14. I was playing the shit out of video games. I was playing Magic the Gathering. I would have been, was I in high school around that time? Man, I have a hard time telling ages in school. I don't remember any of that stuff. A lot of that stuff I just chose to forget. But I remember I would draw like some stuff. When I really got into studying art, it was, I'd say 1 to 2 years before college. So grade 9 or grade 10 and 11 of high school. That's when I started to at least go down a different path of drawing anime stuff. And it was like, I just want to draw better. That's all my goal was there. So, like, I'm not saying wait. I think a lot of us guys that have started late, like myself, we wish, and that's what we try to tell you guys that are a little younger of like, well, you should draw every day, get a schedule routine, all this stuff, right? And I just want to bring this around to try to help you out. If there is truth, and if you want it, you'll do it. You'll figure a way out, right? But you could even do the carrot on the stick kind of thing. And this is sad when you think about it, but play your video games, do what you want to do when you come home, as long as you put in 10 minutes of drawing. And then you build it up to 15, 20, right? But when you're a professional, you don't get sick days, right? You don't get weekends, especially in comics and whatever. You're just a cog in the machine that's producing. So you gotta love the process, and you have to find ways to be okay with not wanting to work today, or everything you're drawing is shit. We all get those days, but you have to find a way to just do it. And for a lot of us, the only reason that actually works is because it's our paycheck. And this is the sad part too. A lot of us, our paycheck is art that we do, and we still don't do art. Okay, so it's real, and I struggle to see, and I see this all the time, and it breaks my heart. Is people say there's no money in comics and stuff, and I get that, but at the same time, there's a lot of people in comics that they're not doing comics all the time. They're not working, right? The money's bad because, you got to put 10 hours a day or 12 hours or however long it takes you to do a page, and you don't want to work every day. So of course the money sucks if you're not getting paid, right? So you can try your best, bud. Try doing something that, even maybe try doing a personal project. So if none of what I've just said about this real professional workflow sounds good to you, maybe drawing isn't a profession that you want to do. If that's the case, then don't beat yourself up about not drawing every day, because it's not what you want to do, right? It makes you temporarily happy to do stuff, but it's not why you get up in the morning. Let's just say, okay? And the one part that I was going to say that I cut out there was, and I don't want to get video game people know what I'm talking about Master Race and stuff, but if you're a video game player, stop playing computer games, period. Okay? Most of you, I'm assuming, are digital artists. The last thing you want to do is be playing video games on your computer, because it's so easy to open up Pillars of Eternity or some other role-playing game or some other Diablo 3. You can just double-click that, even though it's right next to Manga Studio, and you know what I mean? You know which one's going to win every time. Get into console gaming. Get back into portable gaming if you need to, right? Grab a Nintendo DS or something. Do that stuff that's away from your computer, so that when you come in to draw, you don't have to have huge studio space, but your computer is your workstation, right? Try that. Try to get a little professionalism. And the very last thing I'll say, this one is, some people hate it, some people think it's stupid. I did it for a while and it worked for me, so when you come home from school, I don't know what your routine is, probably eating at some point, okay? So let's just assume mom and dad cook. I'm just going to use that as a template. So you come home from school. I don't know what time you're coming home from school. We'll say dinner's 5. Just keep it simple. So come home, relax, watch TV, fire up your game, do nothing, whatever. Eat your meal, right? Relax, do some dishes, clean that up. Might be around 7 now. Go to your room or wherever it is and change your clothes into as if you had a job. So what do I mean by that? Something that's not necessarily comfortable for you. So, maybe you have dress pants. If you don't, and I did this too, I went to a thrift store. I spent, I think it was $20. I got dress pants that they were way too long. And I got a ridiculous button-up shirt that was short sleeves, so I didn't get too hot. But it could fit around my neck, okay? And what I did is I put these pants on, slap a belt on. Belts, God. Put a belt on, put my dress shirt, and this is the key. Tuck that shirt in. Oh my God. What that does is it helped me anyway. It was like that transformation. It's like getting ready to go to work. You know what I mean? So you had that on there, and it's like, all right, now that's what I'm doing. And then just go to work. Right? Treat it as serious. Go to work for an hour. And then when you're done, you can take those clothes off and put your pajamas on or whatever you relax with, your shorts on or whatever, and play the rest of your games. Try that. That might work for you too. Okay, so, wow, that one was a good one. All right, thanks, Austin. And I honestly do wish you the best, and I hope you figure out what it is that you'd like to do. Next question is from William McCollum. Hi, Jonathan. I have been using my Surface Pro 3 for my art, and I enjoy it. I would love to know your impressions on your new monitor. I was thinking of getting the same one, but like you said, there isn't any good reviews from people that do the kind of work we're doing. I would love to know what you think. I've had my Surface Pro 3 for over a year now, and I love working on it. And know you have a Surface as well, but it seems at times it's just a little small for Manga Studio 5, but I usually flip mine over like paper and stuff like that. Okay, so what he's talking about is the Huion GT220. Since that question was asked, I have done an update video. So just to sum it up, the Huion GT220 I no longer use. I've gone back to my Cintiq 12WX, which is a much smaller screen. It's about the Surface Pro size screen, maybe a little smaller. The Huion is great. If you've never used a tablet or anything, it's great. It's wonderful. I don't think you'll really notice anything, especially if you're in Manga Studio. It's fine. It's more than fine. I'm used to the Cintiq. I won't explain to you guys why. You can watch the video. Again, I don't think it's a horrible product at all. The price point's great for what you're getting. Most people that are going to get it, I think, are going to be A-okay with it. Okay. In regards to the Surface Pro, my girlfriend's actually using it to play Facebook games and surf the internet on. I gave it to her because I don't travel, or when I do go out, I can just bring a sketchbook. I don't use it for production work, even though it could be used for production work. I don't use it for production work because I don't go out to do that. I don't travel. Maybe if I'm going to shows a lot every year and on plane rides and stuff, I would definitely be using it then. But when I'm at home, I've got my Cintiq or my Huion. There's no reason for me to use it. Now, in saying that, a friend of mine does, and I have the Surface Pro 1. He has a Surface Pro 3, and that thing's slick, man. It's so much thinner and weighs less. Like, it's more comfortable to use. It's really cool. I really do dig it. As for the screen size, and that was the other thing too, man. Like, thank God that the Huion Manga Studio has a very customizable UI, so you can actually hit those arrow buttons at the top and slide everything over. Very, very good, very good. As for like answering your question, it's good. There's nothing wrong with it. I got comfortable using the Cintiq, so excuse me. I'm going to drink a water or coffee here. But no, I don't use it anymore. I might get back into it, if I'm traveling and stuff. But I've just tried to streamline a lot of my workflow down. So I don't even really think about it too much. But I'm glad you're enjoying it. And I hope it's doing great things for you, bud. Next question is from Sketch Axilus Turner. Axilus, that's a cool name. Hi, Jonathan. I watch your work and wonder, how do you come up with your characters? How do you come up with the design, and what inspires you? Okay, well, thanks, Sketch. So I come up with my characters. If you look at them, they're all the same. They're all like big muscle guys. There's nothing unique about my characters. Other than that, it sort of goes into what I was talking about earlier about the special effects. Visual library is huge. Start reading novels, guys. Start reading novels. And nobody reads novels anymore. You got to slap some people up. Don't just, Here I go. So we're going to preach for a bit. You can look at video games, movies, all this awesome stuff, and all the visual work's done for you. You don't have to think. It tells you what you're looking at, you know what you're looking at, and you take it in, and that's great. Books need you to work. The plot doesn't move. The story doesn't. Nothing moves unless you put work into it. When you put work into something, you get something out. It's the way it goes. And I hope you don't argue that, like, okay, well, if I put skill into a video game, I'm getting something out. Okay, whatever. Okay, so when you read Lord of the Rings, they start talking about the Eye of Sauron on top of, I forget the name of his mountain there. Or, screw it, we'll just talk about Isengard, okay? So you see Isengard, and they're talking about that with Sauron in it and all that stuff like that. You guys read it, I read it, 50 other people read it. Now draw it. There's things that you're going to remember, like the texture that maybe we was talking about. I don't remember the texture. You might remember the texture. Shiny, oily. Maybe it's got some spikes. Who knows how it's written, right? As you read it, everybody's going to take in their thing. Now, the thing is, with your brain, it's amazing. It remembers things. Not everything, but it remembers some things. And if you're lucky, some of those things you're going to be able to pull back later on when you're doing these things, okay? Now, the same thing is applied to... Well, no, that's it. Books are the only way to do that. I was going to say, besides video games, which you should look at the stuff, okay, of course, concept art books are huge. Production books are massive. I can't get enough of art books. If you've got a favorite video game, a favorite movie, get the art books. Check them out. Two of the ones that I can recommend right now, off the top of my head, that I absolutely adore, and I flip through almost daily. The first one's... what the hell is it called here? Tactics Ogre Artworks. And it's all in Japanese. I can't read it, which sucks, but the artwork is It's insane. The armor, everything, like, and I don't know where I would go to look at this. Like, I've got like legit armor books, medieval armor books, and those are great to look through too because they're real. But when you see like other artists putting their flair on things, it gives you something else to pull from, right? And the other one that I look at pretty much daily is The Art of Street Fighter. I think it's a 25-year anniversary. It's like a phone book. It's thick as F. Awesome book. Check all that stuff out. But again, just please read books, guys. And if you don't like reading the epic novels, the trilogies and stuff, I get that. It could take you 3 months to read a book. That's cool. But you're like, put it on the toilet. Stop bringing your phones in, right? Just look at that stuff. Stop playing Candy Crush and other games on your phone when you're using the washroom. Just grab a book. Knock a page or two out. I know it sounds gross and stupid or before bed and, you know, whatever. Just all I'm saying is if you can try to spice up what you're doing, you're going to learn from it. That's all. And books are one of my biggest secret weapons myself. I would recommend the Mistborn trilogy. Anybody listen to that? Fantastic novels. You want to talk about like? Okay, I'm not going to get into it. All right. Anyway, so do that. And for what inspires me, that pretty much all inspires me as well. Like really cool artwork is very inspirational. Because I think we all have artists that we look up to, and those artists are what drive us to get better. Kind of what I talked about before, about the people that work hard and the talented. If you're surrounding yourself by people that are harder workers than you and more talented than you, and you throw yourself in the mix and you want to be with these people, you're going to work harder. You're going to find out what it takes and what you need to do to not only just get better, but I guess sort of like be in their company. You know, do the best. And who knows how long it takes, but you're willing to do it, right? So... Okay, so next question is from Planet Chaos. Something is different from my settings than yours. On my setup at 600 DPI, the mapping pen is far too thin. A line for much use at 0.7. I have to pump mine up to 15. Any guess as to why our settings are so different? I thought I might have messed mine up. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so... Planet Chaos was talking about some settings and stuff. Like he's probably looking at one of the videos that I had, and he mirrors the settings I had, and we're not getting the same results. So there's two things. One, the Wacom tablet, or the Cintiq that I have, in the settings, you can change the pressure sensitivity. Some people like it harder or less. Then you can also, in Manga Studio, most people don't even know this, but if you go to File, it's somewhere up there, it's like tablet preferences or something. You can actually change the pressure sensitivity in that as well. So I've gone into both and I've fiddled with them. So our settings aren't going to be the same, let alone the actual pressure that we apply when we're drawing. I tend to try my hardest to be very light. Again, for my wrist, okay? Some of you guys might be out there just like just carving into whatever you're using, right? And I don't know if the Intuos is different than the Cintiq. I don't know what device you're using. So there's a lot of other things that come in there besides just the generic settings of a brush. Okay, so I would recommend going into your brush settings itself and just changing that up. Maybe you just need to make it a little harder for what's it called? The pen to actually do more work for you, right? Or maybe you need more wrist action to get the pen to do more work for you. Next question comes from Justin Fischetto. Hello, Jonathan. I love your videos to death. Thanks, bud. Thank you for them. Well, thank you for the comment. And I can't wait for your questions and answers video. Hey, 6 months later. I have a few questions. One is about online trolls. Oh, here we go. How do you handle trolls and negative people commenting with negative comments? Haven't heard you talk much about this topic yet. Thanks. Okay, so thanks for the question, Justin. What I do for trolls is just don't care. I mean, don't care. Who cares? There's tons of people that don't like what you do. Fuck them. Doesn't matter. If you're talking about, like, I want to see if we can make this a little more practical to you. If you're talking about people that look at your art when you post online and they tell you suck and stuff, forget them. And if you're an artist, sorry about that, you guys. My mic disconnected there. But what I was trying to say was, if you're an artist, if you're like a new artist, we'll say, and people are posting stuff, it can be very detrimental to like your growth as an artist. You should be able to see through people's bullshit. And the people that are hating on you and stuff, I don't know where they come from. They're, the worst of the human population. They do nothing to contribute to society. However, I will say some trolls are hilarious, right? Like, you might go to somebody else's video, and, like, somebody says something absolutely horrible. And sometimes I'll laugh. I'll think it's like, I don't know how they came up with something so, like, Wow, right? Like that's pretty rough. And I think it ties into that like fail blog, fail mentality of you see somebody trip and fall, you might laugh. There's something funny about seeing other people suffer to a degree, right? So for me, when I see trolls in there, I know it's doing two things. One, I don't care. I'm 32 years old, guys. I could give a shit what trolls are saying. Trolls, really? Trolls, right? And then the other side of it is I know that somebody might say something, maybe like in a video where I'm in it, and they pause the screen and my face looks stupid, my teeth are messed up, who knows? And they say something about it, like that might make somebody laugh. Right, so if everybody wants to have a little jab here and there, that's cool too. You're allowed to have your opinions and stuff, but the way I ultimately look at it, I make stuff. I'm just putting it out there. X person is reading it. Y person might take the effort and time to go, blah, 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 so-and-so, so-and-so. And the way I look at it is if that person is taking time out of their life to do that, cool life. Cool life, man. Like, keep it up. Whatever. Why would I ever give that kind of person attention? What are they doing? That's what they're. And think about it. Imagine you're at home right now and you're just clicking a YouTube video, and now all of a sudden you want to go like, oh, your art sucks. Go kill yourself. Go, blank, blank. I could fill in with some serious expletives here. And, your mom's a blank, and go F your blah, and that's what I'm doing. That's my day. Really? What kind of person am I? Like, anyway, internet tough guys. So don't worry about them. Screw them. They're nothing. They're nobody. They're jokes. They're waste of life. Just let them be, keyboard heroes. Do what they want to do. If that's their creative outlet, let it be their creative outlet. Just don't care. Don't care. Just don't care. You got more important things to worry about. You need art to get better, right? You need more people to see your stuff. You want to make better stuff. There's no time for these people. Just use their backs as stepping stones to get where you're going. Step all over them. Pieces of garbage, right? So, anyway. So Robert Corin Howard is asking Jonathan, how do you do that? Where you fill in with black without the lasso tool and don't end up with a white line of pixels. Okay, so he's talking about one of the actions that I've used, and I do this in Photoshop, and I transferred a lot of those Photoshop actions into Manga Studio. I think I made a video on that. Could be wrong. It should be pretty recent, so just go back and check. So what the action is doing, so there's a lasso tool you can use. Some people will just use a straight marquee lasso tool to make a selection, and then it'll make those little like marching ants, and then you just alt backspace or click the fill button, the paint bucket tool, however you like to fill an object. There's that. There's another one that's, and I actually really enjoy this one. My buddy Will Robson showed me this guy. If you go into right above the text button, there's a figure button, and there's like straight line, curve, polygon. At the bottom is lasso fill, and in there, that actually you make a lasso selection, and that selection will fill automatically with whatever color that you want it. So what I've been doing, and this is the action, is I'll use my magic wand selection tool, and this one you got to be careful of. You have to make sure it's on what mode you want, like all layers or folder. But anyway, you use the wand tool to make the selection you want, and then you go selection, and I forget the name of it. You're basically going to increase the selection so that it'll hit those white pixels that you're talking about. So or actually underneath the bar that'll pop up from the selection you just made, there's like that little toolbar at the bottom where fill, clear, tone work, all that stuff. You can click that and expand it by X amount of pixels. So I usually do 1 to 2, usually 2, just to be safe. Press enter, the selection will grow, and then I just alt backspace to fill it black. So that entire process I've mapped to an action, and I've shortcut it to like, I think it's like F4 or something. So all I need to do is click the wand tool, click the selection that I want to fill in with black, press F4, automatically it'll expand it, fill it, deselect it. That's essentially it. And it might not seem like like I don't want to make actions and stuff, but if you're doing this stuff like almost every day, those microseconds you're saving, they add up over the lifetime of your production, okay? So that might be something you guys are interested in, okay? So thanks again for the question. Hope that helps some of you guys out. Tiger Fan Man is asking, where did you get the comic blueprint template? Did I scan it or make it? Okay, so I've talked about this before as well. I bought mine from Doug Hills. You can go to his website. I forget the name of his website, but it's just DUGHILLS. He's all over YouTube as well. I think his comic book art board was, especially for Manga Studio 5, was like $1 to $3, and it comes in double page spreads, 300 DPI, 612, like it's huge. I was going to make one, and I'm like, you know what, F it, somebody else I know has already made one, get that. The other thing you can do is just do a quick image search for high resolution artboard, comic book artboard, and then just copy that image, paste it into your document, and you're good, right? And then just draw on top of it. I don't know if his Doug Hill's anyway works for Photoshop. I'm pretty sure they're Manga Studio files, but if you have a Manga or a Photoshop template, you could totally just export that as like a JPEG or a TIFF, open up Manga Studio and just import it, and you're good to go. Brian Allen, the mighty Brian Allen. Go check out his channel too, guys. He's got a lot of wonderful stuff, especially from Manga Studio 5. I think he just released some new brushes too, and those are top notch. They're very, very good. So Brian's saying, "Love your videos, man. I'm amazed what you can do, what you can accomplish with pencils in Manga Studio. I struggle a lot with pencil work. Do you do all your penciling in Manga Studio, or do you prefer Photoshop?" Okay, well, thanks, Brian. I actually don't. They're both the same to me. By default, I would say Manga Studio 5. Brushes in general are better. They feel better. I don't know. They just have a feel to them that's just more organic, and they feel more natural to them. So in that case, I would prefer that. But I've been a Photoshop user since grade 9 or 10. So I mean, right? And I'm 32, so that's what, at least 15 years, at least, maybe close to. It'll be 12, yeah, maybe close to 20 years, right? And I'm used to the shortcuts and stuff like that. The trick with Photoshop, though, is finding a cool brush that somebody's made. And I believe I found one for free. Just search DeviantArt is a massive resource that I'm afraid a lot of people don't go to check things out. But just check out pencil brushes for Photoshop, especially on DeviantArt. I don't remember the name that I use, but there's a lot in there that I found that were just like, You tweak a couple things, like Photoshop's very tweakable in that way, like that kind of detail work. Manga Studio I find just tends to work in general, but with like textures and stuff, that's where I'm not quite sure exactly how it works with a lot of that. And Photoshop's got, everybody uses Photoshop in lots of fields, so the wealth of content out there for free or paid is massive compared to Manga Studio, right? Manga Studio is a lot of internal stuff. A lot of us comic brothers and sisters, and illustrators as well, kind of. It's getting better, but yeah. So I don't. It just depends on the project, to be honest. If I had to recommend, I'd say just stick with Manga Studio. Photoshop. There's people that work for Marvel that I've seen that do Photoshop pencils, and they look amazing, right? So again, it's finding that brush that works for you, and it's like the continual hunt until you find it, and then you'll never have to look anywhere else. So anyway, I hope that helps you out there, Brian. Our good friend Kevin Phillips is asking, when submitting to art directors or editors, do I submit JPEGs of each comic page, or do I make a PDF mini book? So personally, I just send 72 DPI JPEGs. And again, I have an action for that where I'll just press, I believe it's F12 on mine. What it does is it merges all the layers that I'm currently working on, changes the resolution to 72, and sometimes that'll actually change the image size, which is what I want. If it doesn't, then I'll go in there and I'll change it to, like, I don't know, 1,000 pixels high, and then it'll scale out whatever it is. Because I don't need my editor to see the detail work unless they want to see that. They just want to see the storytelling. Right, because they just want to make sure the page looks legit and it's not whatever. So that's what I submit. I've never really sent a PDF. Usually, if I'm sending something to an editor, it's page-to-page basis, just to let them know where it's going. I haven't worked on a project where they let me just go totally free until I had the whole book done. And even if it's just pages, personally, like I've gotten PDFs from people. I hate opening up PDFs. Because you have to, it never opens at 100% size. I got to change the, I hate it. If it's a document for a project that I have to start, that's different. But, I really hate getting PDFs myself. So, that's just me. I'm not sure what other people are doing. So, you can check them out. But, yeah, thanks, Kevin. Okay, we're getting close to the tail end here. Wow, an hour already.
A little sip of coffee here, and we'll just hammer through these ones. This is what happens, guys, when you wait 6 to 7 months to do these things. So Brett Strong is asking, hey, John, I'm thinking of upgrading to Manga Studio 5 to make comics. Currently, I pencil in Photoshop and ink in Manga Studio. I'm assuming that means you ink in Manga Studio 4. I would like to change to Manga Studio for all, but I like using a kneaded eraser in which Manga Studio 4 doesn't have. Okay, yeah, so thanks for the question. Manga Studio 5 definitely has a kneaded eraser, and I'm with you on that. The pencils, I hated the pencils in Manga Studio 4. It felt more like primitive Photoshop work in there. Manga Studio 5 works a lot like Photoshop does. You've got actions, you've got a lot of things that are in it. Feel like they took what Photoshop did and added that to Manga Studio 4. So that should be a very high praise for the product. I recommend everybody upgrade to it. Manga Studio 4 has some... I still like Manga Studio 4's rulers better, myself, for what I do. I'm not doing anything too complicated. I like the way that they did their toning, but I'm just starting to get used to that, especially for Castle Dracula, like tone work. And I don't know how many people here that I'm talking to use tones, so I don't really think that applies. But yeah, the pencils, right, like out of the box, I remember the first thing I went to was pencils, played around with that. I was thoroughly impressed. The way that I can adjust brush settings, massive. Absolutely. I was very Manga Studio 4, and I think Manga Studio 4 is a fantastic product. It's very simple. It's exactly what you need to get a certain kind of artwork done 100% of the time. File sizes are immaculate. Great product. 5, I find, is again a lot of the same things, but it moved, in my opinion, it moved away from Manga Studio and into the Photoshop world. So take that for what it is. Both wonderful products, but to answer your question specifically, yes, if you were to get Manga Studio 5, you would not need Photoshop for anything. There's 0 things you need for Photoshop. Perhaps if you do what I like to do, again, talking the DC Comics guidebook of making building paths for a face to like do buildings, or if you're into that kind of thing, then yeah, I still hop into Photoshop to do that as well. But some people have been talking about being able to do that in Manga Studio 5. I've yet to see it. Some people leave comments saying, "Hey, I don't even use Photoshop anymore. I use the symbol path or something it's called in Manga Studio, and it works better." But these people aren't leaving feedback after that, so it's suspect. I need to see it in action. So anyway, yeah, definitely make the upgrade. 100% worth it. They do sales all the time, so just make the jump when it's good for you, bud. Our good friend Nazra is asking, Jonathan, are you a lightboxing dude? Just want to ask, personally, he's never liked lightboxing. It looks lifeless. It's something about the blue construction lines. I just love it. You got to have something to mess around with the artboard. Okay, thanks, Nazra. I'm not a big... I'm digital, guys. Lately, I got into a printer that prints on Bristol that's colored as well. So I've been doing, like, for commissions and stuff, I'll print out the line art, and then I'll ink over top of it. So I don't even use light boxes anymore. I do have one my father made back in the day when I had to use a printer to blow up the size of something so that I could tape, and I've done a video on this, so you could tape 2 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper together. That makes it 11 by 17, and I'd light box that on top of artboard. I know what you're saying about the lifelessness. I think, though, that just comes from how tight you're taking your light box from. For me, I would do very rough thumbnails, small, blow them up to 11 by 17, and then when I would lightbox that onto my Bristol, that's where I was kind of tightening up, but I was still keeping it pretty loose, so that once I took it off that and went to the artboard, now it's time to really hunker down and do that stuff. But good friend of mine, Joe Mulvey, I got to talk to him more about it, but I believe it's Huion, they have like these lightboxing things, and they look. I wish I had this stuff back in the day, you guys. It looks like it's like a Surface Pro, like that thin, kind of like an iPad as well or something. And it's just it's a light illuminated light coming through that's not too offensive, and it's all it is a light box. And it's from what I hear, it's amazing. I know Joe does a lot of light boxing for his cleanup and stuff. I think mostly what Joe does, though, and this might work for some of you guys if this is what you're into, he does pretty rough and tight pencils at the same time, meaning let's just say you're drawing like an arm. There's a lot of lines going in that arm, but they're getting darker where you know those tight lines want to be, but there's still a lot of lines there. So when he light boxes it, that's when he gets his inking done. I'm assuming, and I'm not 100% sure on that because there's the other argument that you want to get ink on your device and stuff. That's cool. Or maybe he's just doing really tight pencils on that and then inking over top. I'm not sure. But I do see the importance of lightboxing. Unless you're a digital artist, it might be something you want to check out. So anyway, if you're still doing that, I wish you the best there. NS Sketch 391 is asking, "Hi John, I know you get asked this a lot, but what printer scanner do you have?" Okay, yeah, thanks. Actually, I don't get this question asked that much. So I have two printers. The one printer I bought because I wanted to do mini comics, like a lot of mini comics. It's a what is it? It's not an inkjet or anything like that. I don't even know if they make those anymore. It's a toner printer, I believe it is, where it prints almost like a photocopier. And the reason I wanted that is it's just straight black and white, which is what I want. And when I was doing mini comics, that stuff I always found it was like precise, man. Like it's not ink bleeding, nothing. It's crisp line art. Love it, absolutely love it. And I get like all my printing done through that, and I use Scan It. It's a Brother DCP multifunction cop. You guys don't need that. So the series you're looking for it's a Brother TN-420. It was actually, I don't know, under $100. That thing kicks ass. It's toner, amazing. Now the other printer I just got last Christmas, I believe, it's a Brother as well, and that model is, where are you? You would think they'd have it right on the front, but, you know. Okay, it's a little longer here. It's Brother MFC-J4420DW. And what that does is it's an 11 by 17 printer, which is great, and it's colored and can print on heavy stock. So what's cool about that is, again, like I just said, I can do a totally digital blue line, and maybe I'm just doing pencil work, real inking, whatever, and I can print that on an 11 by 17 Bristol and take that over and draw. I don't need to lightbox anymore. I don't need to do any kind of drawing at all. I can do all my adjustments and stuff digital and then work on it traditional. And that's what I wanted it for, especially for commissions and anything else that I wanted to do, which is on that, which is perfect. The only thing none of these have is like an 11 by 17 scanner, and that was sort of the choice I had to make. I don't do a lot of traditional 11 by 17 art, so I didn't go for that. If you do, I would probably save up for a little bit of scratch and get the 11 by 17 scanner. It just saves you time, and how I sort of talked about doing actions, anything that saves you time over the length that it's doing it is a must. It's going to pay off big time. Okay? So, next question is by, I'm not going to be able to print, I don't know what this name is. It's like D3ND. And then it just keeps repeating. Do you get numbness or tingling sensation in both hands? If it's just both, it could be the way you sit, and the problem is located in your neck. So he's talking about, lately I just sort of opened it up with you guys about it feels like the onset of carpal tunnel. And it's usually the way I'm pretty sure the way my arm is resting while I'm drawing, especially at my day job, where I use an Intuos, and it's really affecting the way I work. So I'm going to have to bring this up with my boss about seeing what we can do to get this fixed. But other than that, I noticed that like that numbness will start to tingle in right around my wrist and my whole hand, and I'll have to stop and I just stretch my arm out to the side, like, you know, you get that nice bicep stretch. You just reach out and you get that stretch all the way down the middle of your arm, right in the meat there, right in the joint. And all of a sudden you'll feel like the blood kind of like going back, almost as if like the arm was dead when you woke up kind of feeling. Shake it out and get back to it. It's scary. That's very scary. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to take actual methods of fixing this. So I've gone back to using the big fat round thing. I think I showed you guys before. It's disgusting, really. It's like fabric wrapped with tape, and I just wrap around my entire stylus. That way I can't get a very precise grip. I can't close my fingers all the way to get the line art that I want. I've noticed that helps my pinky and all that stuff. And the last big toy that I made, I'll be posting this on Facebook and Twitter once it gets here, is a standing desk. I finally made the purchase of getting one. It's got like the automatic gear thing so it can go up and down. And I'm so excited for that to be able to stand because I sit all day, and this isn't directly regarding your question, but it is ergonomics and it's the longevity of being able to work. If all I did was comics all day, that's different because I can get up, you know. But at my day job, I'm sitting all day for 8.5, 9 hours a day, and then I come home and I enjoy making comics and writing. You know, I enjoy computers. So I come home and I'm sitting, and I notice that right before where my knee bends on my thigh underneath, like it hurts right in there, man, like right on the edge of your seat. My legs are always getting whatever, my knees, you know, I'm just falling apart here. And if I can't draw anymore, like, that's, and just to be real here with you guys, if I for whatever reason wasn't able to draw anymore, I would be so, like, genuinely sad. Like, it would almost be as if someone very special to me was taken out of my life. And I dread that moment from happening. So I want to spend the most time I can drawing while I can. And it scares the hell out of me not being able to do something that I thoroughly enjoy and love doing. And when that goes, I just hope that everything I've done up to that point is somewhat satisfying, you know, that I can look back and be like, you know, it was good, it was fun while I was doing it. So not to get a big downer or sad on you guys, that's why I'm trying to look into like this stuff. The table itself, not to gloat or anything, it was about $800 Canadian, very expensive, and it's not even like a high-end table. But the way I'm looking at it is like it's a lot of cash. It's not like I'm just made of money here, but it's for the future, right? It's sort of like, what can I do today that's going to help me my entire art career? Like I said, I don't want to stop doing this. So that's why I'm looking into that, and that's why this potential carpal tunnel getting insane here, that's very that's scary, and I don't want that. I don't think anybody wants that, so I'm trying to do what I can to mitigate that, and I highly recommend you guys do as well. And if you're getting anything like I'm getting, please do what you can to stay on top of it. Don't let something as dumb as whatever it could have been that got this started, don't let that take it away from you, you know? Just do your best there, okay? Okay, so thanks anyway. 2 questions left. Rick Bulao, hopefully I said your name right, bud. I love when you are doing these and we get a maybe... Okay, so he's talking about... lately, you guys might have noticed on my channel, it's just all been like the streams that I do on Wednesday. And I would love, and I've been trying to, get back to doing like a 6 to 9 minute video sped up and just talking. You know, like those are fun. Just a little harder to get into them. So he's saying he's glad to see those videos back as well. You did some things most specifically with the stitching in the white. Okay, so he wants to know. Okay, so go back to some videos. You guys will see it. What it's again talked about in the DC Comics guide. What it is you make a shape in Photoshop or in Manga Studio. And what it does is you add white to it, and it makes a contour line, so it looks like you drew it. So a good example to use this would be with shoelaces. You know how it's like there's all the lines of the lace going in the hole, out the hole, across to the other one, and it just goes over, and it's like this. It's a texture, and it's intricate line art, and it takes a little bit of time to do sometimes until you kind of learn how to do it. So what I would do is you make the outline shape of how big you want it to be. You make it on a new layer and you fill it black. Then what you do is you select that layer and you shrink the selection of that black that you put in there to the line art size that you would draw in. So in the workflow that we've been doing, 3 pixels is about the dead brush size. There's no pressure sensitivity to it, that kind of idea. The entire rough line art is that size. So when I make shoelaces, I'll make a new layer and I'll make like all the lines going to the left. So all of these, they look like big black Tic Tacs, just all the way down. Then what I do is I believe it's the control button. You click that layer you just made, and it'll get those little marching ants around all the black. Then you just go selection, shrink selection by 3, because we want to make the 3 pixels, right? It'll shrink it, and then I just fill it with white. Okay? That's it. And then I'll make another layer above it, and I need to do the other side. So I'll get the big black brush that I want, and I just go Now they're going on the other side. The little black Tic Tacs there, and then I'll make the exact same thing I just did. And now you get that layered look, like they're overlined. When you're done the entire page, before you get into inking, you're going to either flatten it, or you're going to merge all those layers and multiply them. So what happens is that the line art is still seen, but that white is there, and that's what you want. If you guys have seen some of the Castle Dracula stuff I do, actually just go back a couple videos, you'll see Gildas there. He's holding onto the rock, and I did it with his whip. That's the perfect example. You can just see me just do this black shape with the whip, and then all of what I just said about making the selections, all that's in action, so I never have to go back and do any of that stuff. Okay, so that's basically what it is. Again, DC Comics Guide to Digitally Drawing Comics. Buy this book, guys. Buy this book. Look at it. If not, go look at Freddie Williams' videos on YouTube. Lots of the stuff I'm talking about he's done there with most likely proper instructions. You guys might be able to help that out. And I hope you enjoy it because it's actually huge. I do it with debris and stuff all the time. Guys, it just saves so much time. Okay. Last question by Gabriel Barros. So, Jonathan, would you say for a heavy Manga Studio user, it's worth it? Because I noticed most, if not all, the problems you got with the line art was Photoshop. Just wondering, because I could easily shift from one to the other in that case. So, thanks, Gabriel. He's talking about, again, the Huion. Okay, so the issue is the line jitter. I don't know if, again, that was just me that had that or what. But if you get the Huion, again, I don't think there's anything wrong with it at all. It's the nuances and it's the little things that I personally believe if you were to put a Huion next to a Cintiq 21, whatever's comparable to the two, most people, if they were the same price, you would go with the Wacom. That's just my preference, and I think most people are with me on that. Now, in saying that, that doesn't mean that the Huion is less. Okay? It's just a little different. There's little things about it that might seem less to somebody that's used the Wacom. That's all. But you should still be able, and I was able to do it, make the same kind of quality work. I just felt like I had to work a little harder with the Huion. If you're doing if your day job involves drawing all the time, you might want to save up to get a Cintiq. If you're a little bit more casual, or you're okay, now I want to start to turn this into something, and I want to move to a tablet that I draw on, then the Huion I would recommend is like an excellent intro tablet to this stuff. I use the 12WX, and the biggest thing, the Cintiq, the small guy, the biggest letdown for me, and the hardest part to get around is just the size, like how much screen real estate I lost. But you learn to work with what you got within your means and stuff, right? So that's it, you guys. Thank you so much. This video is almost an hour and a half. This sped up video that you're watching is probably not that sped up. I think it's like a 2-hour video. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Thank you guys again so much. If you made it all the way through here, let me know in the comment section below. If you had a question, please leave a comment down there as well, and we will address it in the next one, which is, again, in about a month to 2 months, depending on the amount of questions we get. And thank you guys. Thank you so much once again for all you guys do, all the sharing, all the feedback, everything you guys are doing. You guys help make this whole thing worth doing, and I'm glad if I was able to help you out that you got something out of it. So I'm going to get out of here. We've been together here for quite a while, and I hope whatever projects you're working on, whatever you're working on in the background's awesome. Okay, you guys? So like usual, like we always say, keep reading comics, keep making comics, and I'll talk to you guys very soon. Bye-bye.